people at risk and for those who live with them or care for them. The American Lung Association asks, are you one of the faces of influenza? See your healthcare provider about getting vaccinated.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. Welcome to the program where we're going to get things done together. That's what we're here for. If you're joining us live on radio, make sure you set it to this station because this is where you're going to get A Neighbor's Choice every day. If you're joining us on podcast, thank you. We're welcoming all the international listeners we continue to gain every day. Or perhaps you're going to our website at neighborschoice.com where you can find all of our episodes, our online-only podcast, Things Hidden, as well as articles on A Neighbor's Choice that cover topics that we cover on this radio show. You can go to neighborschoice.com to find that. And that's what it's interesting to see, that we have time and time again been kind of amazed at the power of fear, of the power of groupthink to get people to do things which are ridiculous, to get people to say things that are ridiculous, to get people to act in barbaric ways. But this isn't anything new. This is something that human beings have been doing all the time since the dawn of time. Whenever there is a crisis like a plague or a famine, human beings do irrational groupthink type behavior. They get into a frenzy in which they do really insane things. Famines and plagues really bring out the reality of human nature. And we're no different. We are much closer to our ancestors than we'd like to believe. The arrogance of the neoliberal McWoke ideology of critical theory tries to mask the reality of the unique and undeniable nature of humanity, which is that we are a violent species and we are a blind species. We are a self-justifying species. We don't want to accept responsibility for the proclivities of doing bad things. We will go along with whatever other people are going along with. That's what human beings tend to do. Very rare do you actually find anybody who thinks from first principles, who acts on first principles. That is so rare in the human species. Most human beings are not using first principles to make their decisions. They're just doing what everybody else is doing. That's it. They believe and they espouse different views because they heard it on television. That's it. If you ask them why, they can't answer. But they will believe it and they will fight as long as they possibly can. As long as the rest of the herd is doing it, they'll do everything they can. They'll dig their heels in. People don't like to admit that they're wrong. They don't know why they believe what they believe, but they certainly know they're not wrong. That's what you deal with folks who believe in ridiculous information time and time again. Remember, they tried to lie us into war with Syria, and that totally fell apart. Totally fell apart. But there's so much lies on lies on top of lies on top of lies to do all these little things that don't need to be done. It's, life is difficult enough as it is just with the regular problems, but when you always have to go pick a fight with another conflict around the world, that just causes more havoc and chaos than is necessary. One can disagree and really criticize someone like Assad, but also understand that the cure is worse than the disease if we unleash Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other factions to make a mess out of the country. But everybody in the corporate McWoke press will not tell you that. You ask Joe Scarborough, he'll tell you, he will, like a lemming, just go with what everybody else is saying. They eat at the same restaurants. They go to the same parties. The neo-lib left and the neocon right. They hang out together. They think they're better than you. They think that your life is not as worthwhile as theirs. And they justify it in their privileges. They justify their lies because what else is there to do? They just want to fit in. They want to fit in with the people they hang out with. They don't want to do what's right. They don't want to act on first principles. They don't want to think about empathy for a moment and say, wait a second, do I really want to unleash Al-Qaeda in Syria? Is that really what an adult who has any brain power or any human heart left would do to anybody? I don't care what your stupid Machiavellian justifications are. Al-Qaeda was involved in 9/11. Why in the world would we arm those sick people? But that doesn't mean anything to people, in the sold out crowd. These corporate PR muppets. They're there to say, hey, you got to do regime change. You got to do regime change. They'll make movies. And you always know it doesn't pass the smell test, the believability of the narratives they sell, when everybody comes out and says it. Whenever they want to push something really bad, a bipartisan bad idea, you always hear all these Hollywood stars and music stars and all NPR and all the podcasts that are backed by giant corporate money, all the major media, all the big universities, they all come out, Humpty Dumpty's men, all come out and in unison say, you have to do this, you have to believe in this, you have to go to this war, you have to do this mandate, you have to do that thing, you have to do this, you have to hate this person. That's when you know you really have a bad situation on hand. When they get together and do bipartisan stuff like they did with this new NDAA, when they do the Patriot Act, when they do all the uniparty stuff, that's the worst stuff. But always be very skeptical when you see them come out with anything and say, hey, look at all these Hollywood celebrities saying you should do it. That means they're really trying to appeal to a low info type person. Someone who says, I saw that person play a character I like in a movie, therefore I'll do exactly what they're doing. That works for a lot of people. A lot of people, that's all it takes, apparently, because they wouldn't be doing this over and over again whenever they want to push a war or a new healthcare package or a new mandate or a new policy of lockdown. They trot out these little Muppets, these little Hollywood stars and music stars. Why? Because it works for some people. People are like, I saw that person in a movie. That movie gave me pleasure. Therefore, what they're doing and telling me to do now is what I have to do. You're like, whoa, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant stuff. But that's what we're dealing with. The weaponized ignorance of democracy. The weaponized ignorance of people who do not want to think for themselves, but rather want to feel what everybody else is feeling and then act hateful and disgusting. And always just say, well, I'm just going along with what the experts say. That's another way of saying I'm just following the orders. I'm just doing my job, ma'am. The same framework comes in that same line of thought, right? I'm just doing what the experts say is the same as I'm just doing my job. I'm just following orders. It's the same cop-out, hypocrite, mindless statement that has been the tip of the spear for all tyrants and wickedness in high places since the dawn of time. That's the mindset you always hear. I'm just going along to do what everybody else is doing, hurting people that don't deserve to be hurt. Pushing people into fear, pushing people into doubting their own dignity, doubting their own immune system, doubting their own ability to think for themselves and travel, doubting their own ability to open up a business and run a restaurant. People in California aren't even allowed to eat outside. It's pathetic. It's pathetic, man. These politicians don't deserve any respect the way they're treating people. They're doing nasty, horrible things to people that have consequences far beyond their little electoral time in office. like a domino effect. You screw over somebody's business now, and it screws up things down the road, messes up their marriage, messes up their health, messes up their kids' lives. I saw a video of, was it United Airlines kicking off a family because they couldn't get their 2-year-old child to put a mask on. A 2-year-old child. And you had stupid people in the comments saying, oh, I'm so happy United Airlines did the right thing. Those people they knew the instructions. They knew what they had to do. That is so pathetic, that HOA type mindset, that busybody, nanny state loser mindset. But that's what a lot of people around us are really owned by. And it's horrible to realize that, right? Because we were all believing, we knew that groupthink was a big thing. We just didn't realize how deeply affecting it is to people. What are you going to do, make a 2-year-old wear a mask? How traumatic is that to begin with, having that stuff over you can't breathe well when you're 2 years old? That is sick. And they're not allowed to go on the plane because the 2-year-old don't want to wear a mask. Even though they were covering it, they were putting it over the child's mouth by, like holding it over them. But that wasn't good enough. That's the problem with our country today, is nobody wants to take responsibility in these hive mind bureaucracies and big corporate America and big government America. Nobody wants to take responsibility. They treat you like you're not humans. And it's not just government. It's these bureaucratic businesses that only exist in their powerful form because of government regulation, protecting them and coddling them and allowing you to be forced into buying their services. Look at insurance companies. They don't have your back. They private. Think about what you have to do with even something as simple as car insurance. They force you to buy it so they get to sit happy and nice and take your paycheck every month or whatever you pay. And they don't have to give you the highest quality service at the best cost because everybody's mandated to buy it. Imagine if you had a product, you sold milk or something, almond milk, and you could get your state to mandate that everybody has to buy a gallon of milk once a week, no matter what. And then it gets cartelized into 3 or 4 major, milk sellers in Florida, and you got to buy that gallon of milk every day, no matter who you are, if you live in the state of Florida, because it's good for your health or good for whatever, right? How would you be able to create an incentive in your heart when you have people mandated, forced to buy your crap, to do a good job, to be the best, highest quality, the best service, the best price, the best quality? You wouldn't have that incentive. It's a captured market. It's like anything else. You wouldn't have to work that extra bit harder to do a really good job, to deliver a really good product like everybody else in the real world has to do when they have competition and they have people that have the right to not buy their service. It's the same thing that goes on with these airlines. It's the same thing that goes on with all these big bureaucratic companies. Look at the internet service providers. Also beneficiaries of government regulation, which allows them to be fat and happy and inefficient and ineffective at delivering you a high quality product at a low cost. But you don't get that luxury, do you? You don't get that luxury. You have to work hard for what you make. People don't have to buy your product by force. Most people that are listening to me now. But we don't realize how much this bad bystander effect that's built into bureaucracies of business and government, how much that warps and distorts everything around us. But we need to learn it fast. We're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. We'll be back in just a moment with more. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
Do you despise lawyers? That may be the case until you need one. If you've been in an auto accident and need legal advice, go to the local attorneys that have served Tampa Bay families for over 28 years. Catania and Catania. They are family owned. They understand your needs with legal advice. When you need legal representation, Catania will care for your case from the beginning to final settlement. You won't need to worry. Catania will represent you throughout the entire process. Auto and motorcycle accidents are too frequent in Florida. If you've been a victim, contact Catania. They don't get paid if you don't get paid. Referrals on request. Contact Catania, putting families first.
Offices Tampa, non-attorney spokesperson.
So that's the problem we have, folks, is that we got too much HOA style nanny state busybodies. And they all say, whenever you call them out on their garbage, they say, I'm just following my orders. I'm just doing my job, as if that excuses going along with bad policies, going along with bad behavior. And that's something we don't want to encourage in this society, but yet we're turning a blind eye to it every day. People kicking off families on United Airlines because they got a kid who's 2 years old who doesn't want to put on a freaking mask. It's so ridiculous that people are treated like this, that nobody has this ability to just see people as human beings and say, hey, you're a human being. That's a 2-year-old child. That's not a hallucination. That's not a illustration. It's not a hologram. That is a human being child. They need to get from this point to that point. It's 2 years old. But they're so owned by fear that they can't see anything but a bureaucratic, sterile, empty, soulless approach to life. And that's the case for so many big businesses today, that they would care if they had to, if they actually had to work hard to earn a customer. But big business is pro big government. That's one of the things you'll be indoctrinated day one over and over again in high school and college, is that if you are for free markets, therefore you are going to be for big business. That's not true. Big business is always pro big government. And that's why we have a situation where all these giant corporations are acting like the enforcement arm of all these little busybody book burners. Modern day digital book burners. The New York Post has a story. Instagram censors post for linking Joe Biden's 1994 law to mass incarceration. This is a piece by Stephen Nelson. It says Facebook owned Instagram on Wednesday censored as false a user's claim that President-elect Biden's 94 crime law contributed to the mass jailing of black people. That claim is vehemently supported by both left-wing and conservative criminal justice reform advocates and by lawyers for people with long prison sentences. Artist Brad Trammell, who has more than 100,000 Instagram followers, posted a photo of Biden and then President Bill Clinton writing, "Find someone that looks at you the way Biden looked at Clinton after Clinton signed Biden's crime bill into law, bringing mass incarceration to Black Americans." The post was quickly censored with an interstitial warning saying it is false information. These people are so pathetic. These are book burner corporate fascists. You can't even handle the truth. Some smug, whether it's an algorithm or some smug little busybody employee at Facebook, they want to lie to people because they're not the ones who have family members in prison for mass incarceration bill that Clinton and Biden pushed. So they're so smug and arrogant that they'll delete or censor and call it false what is true. I mean, how pathetic do you have to be that bigoted? To be that bigoted, to say, I love my mass incarcerating Joe Biden so much that I will use my disgusting platform on Facebook, Instagram to delete truthful information about the wicked record of this kind of a guy. You know, how smug do you have to be that kind of person? Can't you just allow people to think? Can't you allow people to express their opinion? Not these little wannabe tyrants. They can't even allow you to say a statement like that. That's how tyrannical these people want. That's how insecure they are. They can't even handle the truth. A message explaining the censorship says independent fact checkers say this information has no basis in fact. Users are also told the claim was rated false by a USA Today reporter. So stupid. So embarrassing, these people. You know, you try to be polite to people, but at some point when they're this pathetic, they're attacking everything that we have for a civilized society. You're not even allowed to talk about the truth that this person's putting bills into place that lock people up. And then these people are the same people that say that they are socially just, and they go out and they stand in the streets and have this weird, creepy religious obsession with themselves where they say, I can't breathe, to appropriate the dying words of people who are put into harm's way because of the actions of politicians they voted for. How pathetic. Can you imagine the audacity, the arrogance of these fools? They are censoring truthful statements about the record of mass incarceration and the bills that Biden and Clinton pushed in. And then they have the audacity to lecture the rest of the country and tell them that they are superior to them when it comes to justice reform, because they go out in the streets and they appropriate, they take the dying words of people who were hurt by police actions that have been enabled by the very politicians that they vote for, Clinton and Biden and so forth. Imagine the level of arrogance and ignorance that has to be mixed up in that. It is breathtaking to think of that, to think that people are that ridiculously bigoted. But that's what we have today. And we have CBS and ABC and NBC and Newsweek and Time, AP, all the dinosaur press, New York Times, Washington Post, all coddling and encouraging this behavior and creating these lies every day. And it's a bizarre time, my friends, because the level of desperate lying that is going on every day, where you can't even post anything, it's an attack against the internet is really what's going on. They funnel everybody into these little silos, these 3 or 4 little cartels, just like they had with TV. The establishment hive mind is what I'm referring to when I say they. That establishment hive mind. They funnel everybody into these little silos, and then bam, they start deleting truthful statements. We'll take a quick break and return on A Neighbor's Choice in just a moment.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. The madness of 2020.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Get it straight from Chris Plant.
They're so hypocritical. It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
This has just got me going off.
And the left is waging war against the police in the United States.
Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point. You're a voice of reason and the sea of idiots.
The Chris Plant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHPO.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill say there could be a deal soon on a $900 billion COVID relief bill. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
None of the remaining hurdles cannot be overcome. Everyone is committed to achieving a result, and we will not leave until we get the job done.
Pledging to work through the weekend if needed on that bill that would put a $600 stimulus check in the pocket of most Americans. Coronavirus deaths, so many now that COVID-19 is the number one cause of death in the United States. A record 3,400 lives lost to the virus in the last 24 hours. A second COVID-19 vaccine from Moderna could get emergency use authorization as early as tomorrow. An American teenager sentenced to 4 months in jail in the Cayman Islands for violating coronavirus restrictions. 18-year-old Skylar Mack broke her 2-week quarantine to watch her boyfriend's jet ski competition. Her family calls the sentence too harsh. Officials said a fine wouldn't be enough of a deterrent. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Neighbor's Choice returns, and now we turn to our Thursday segment that we do every week, and that's science. We turn to the world of science. We call it Science and You, and we are joined now by my chief science advisor for A Neighbor's Choice, physicist Dr. Yu. How you doing?
Thank you, David, for having me on. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Very good. I want to turn to this story in Yahoo called Black Holes May Not Be Black Holes at All. They may actually be fuzzballs. So you're telling me black holes are just fuzzy balls? Is that what they are?
Yes.
What are they going to come up with next, huh? What will they think of next?
Next will be, there is no such things called a black hole. Okay. The reason we're always talking about a black hole, that came out of, it's a part of the results of Albert Einstein's general relativity. Assuming any size of matter, if you can squeeze enough, make a volume smaller enough, nearly to zero volume, with a finite mass, where at a certain point, it becomes a black hole. When you get through a threshold where it becomes a black hole. But this is a tradition. This becomes a classical black hole, theory. However, if you think about Albert Einstein's point is a theoretical point with a zero volume, or you can consider a point as a sphere. It's a perfect spherical shape. In that sense, so we can extrapolate. So black hole. If it started with a single point, so black hole is called the event horizon, the boundary will be looks like a perfect spherical, right? But this theory said that no, this is based on the string theory. They said well, Albert Einstein's explanation of black hole based on the particle physics, and that explanation have so many holes. They said maybe based on the string theory, we talk about it's not like a infinite point. Instead, it's a string of energy, so that's called a string. So you consider black hole like a yarn, like the yarn, a big yarn ball instead of a hole or black. So based on that one, it says the boundary you may not see perfect spherical is a fuzzy ball.
So what's your assessment of their argument? Do you find it strong?
Oh, I find both argument, explanation of black hole are not correct. The reason is in this world there is no such thing. You can you can infinite small with a zero volume and have a finite mass becomes infinite gravity. So so my interpretation is a black hole is something does not exist. So no matter how you square it, explain it, explain something does not exist. So of course the argument will be not correct. So now we said, well, if you say black hole does not exist, however, the phenomenon we thought that there's a black hole phenomena exists. That's true. We do see, the galaxies around the center of the galaxies. All the star systems around the center of the galaxy, they spin so fast. They revolute around somehow. Dark object seems like object center is so fast. They said it must have some strong magnetic field, a strong gravity field in there. So what is that? So my interpretation is the so-called when we have a spin around the center of the galaxy, so that galaxy does not have any objects in it because it spins so fast, right? So all the heavy objects spin out is nearly like a vacuum in there. So why? So then you said, wow, if there's nothing there, why everything spinning around them? It's actually they're not spinning around the center of the hole. It is spinning. If you have a binary sun, when they rotation together, what happens? The center of the mass of the binary solar system is empty because of the gravitational force between the galaxies around the edge of the black hole. Their attraction, that's a magnetic attraction. Their attraction keep their in place and they keep the rotation. Without the rotation, there will be impact. In order to keep them without the impact, they have to have a fast rotation. So the force, so-called black hole force, is a magnetic attraction force, and the magnetic force can be billions of times greater than gravity force. Of course, you don't need a missing mass. You don't have to explain the phenomena. A black hole has like 4 billion times of the solar system, sun, in order to have that effect. Actually, magnetic force can be billions of times higher than gravitational force. So you can still have a force attraction. However, everything rotation around the center. Not because center has something black hole, strong magnetic force. Because whenever you have two objects, tied in together, rotating, the center of rotation is in between. So that's empty space.
Very interesting. Let's go to another story. Nanowork.com says ultra cold atoms reveal a new type of quantum magnetic behavior. A new study eliminates surprising choreography among spinning atoms. In a paper appearing in the journal Nature, researchers from MIT and Harvard reveal how magnetic forces at the quantum atomic scale affect how atoms orient their spins. In experiments with ultra-cold lithium atoms, the researchers observed different ways in which the spins of the atoms evolve. Like ballerinas coming back up into upright positions, the spinning atoms return to an equilibrium orientation in a way that depends on the magnetic forces between individual atoms. For example, the atoms can spin into equilibrium in an extremely fast ballistic fashion or in a slower, more diffuse pattern. The researchers found that these behaviors, which had not been observed until now, could be described mathematically by the Heisenberg model, a set of equations commonly used to predict magnetic behavior. Their results address the fundamental nature of magnetism, revealing a diversity of behavior in one of the simplest magnetic materials. This improved understanding of magnetism may help engineers design spintronic devices which transmit, process, and store information using the spin of quantum particles rather than the flow of electrons. Studying one of the simplest magnetic materials, we have advanced the understanding of magnetism, says Wolfgang Ketterle. When you find a new phenomenon in one of the simplest models in physics for magnetism, then you have a chance to fully describe and understand it. What do you think of that, Dr. Yu?
Well, I think this discovery actually confirms my fundamental understanding of the universe, the fundamental building block of everything in the universe is a magnetic particle. So that's why
what is the fundamental?
It's a magnetic particles. It's a magnets.
Mm-hmm.
So what they discover is at the atomic or subatomic level, they discover there's a magnetic force, magnetic field, magnetic force interaction. It is said, spinning or something. So at the minimum, so they detect at the subatomic level, the interaction is magnetic. So that's very important. Actually, that's the magnetic force binding all atoms and the molecules together from matter. So that's the fundamental force, binding force. So basically, they just confirm at that level, actually at a cold, super cold temperature, so they can measure effectively. If it's a higher temperature, high vibration, it's easy, it's lots of noise, difficult to measure. But at a super cold, they measure the magnetic effect. And once we I believe with just deeper understanding at a subatomic level, we still have a magnetic field. So you mentioned about it. So instead of a general electricity, instead of use called electrons, they said, electrons. Actually, we can use this called magnetic field. Those atoms, subatomic, particles, instead of just the electron generated electricity. So this is a good place to explain. So what's wrong with our theory understanding of electron and the electricity too? So we think about the electron are negative charged particles. Okay, the smallest negative charged particle in the universe. So we call the electrons called the elementary particle. And the electricity is a flow of electron, flow of this smallest particle inside of conducting metals, materials. That's what we understand. Okay, electron is a particle, it's a negative charge, and the electricity due to flow of electron. And let me tell you, this is exactly wrong. What's wrong with the fundamental understanding of physics? Number one, there is no such particle, is only have a negative charge without a positive charge. This kind of, or only have a negative charge, or only have a positive charge, like a proton. This particle does not exist. So what we normally see electron or protons inside nucleus, they are nothing more just little magnetic particles. Of course, a proton is almost 2,000 times heavier than electrons. Those are from chemistry measurements. I believe that measurement is correct. Okay, so but what electron and atom, they are nothing more, they are just magnetic particles. So then what is electricity? Electricity is not a flow of electron. When you are in a solid material, metallic materials, conducting materials, there's no space, there's nothing traveling called from A to B, no particle traveling from A to B. No, what happens? Electricity is not the flow of particle because there's no particle traveling inside of a solid wire. The only things traveling is the wave motion of the particles. It's vibrating. Each particle, each atoms, one to another, just like a domino piece, one of another. When you push one domino down, and the other piece started falling down. If you look at it, no individual atoms is moving from A to B. But what happens? It's oscillating in the same location. However, the wave motion, so one after another, this is called wave motion, propagates. So in this case, we said that this is a discovery of a new field. Without relying on electrons, we can still generate electricity. As long as it's a charged particle, that means it's a highly magnetized particle. As long as they're in motion, if they're magnetic particle in motion, you generate a magnetic wave propagation. That wave propagation is electricity. So no particle moving needed.
Very interesting. So there's no moving particle. It's just a wave motion of like dominoes that's taking place.
That's correct. Yes, or like a water wave, the ripples. Every particle is still vibrating in the same location. However, the wave energy propagates the same as dominoes. Yeah, that's actually you use a domino as an analogy. I thought that's a good way to describe it. Thank you.
We're speaking with physicist Dr. Yu, and we're on Science in You, which is our weekly segment related to science and physics, chemistry, and the world of technology and innovation. And we'll return in just a moment with more of our Science in You segment in just a short moment. Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals, join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Not ready to go to your favorite seafood restaurant? Get the highest quality fish for less delivered straight to your door by Fast Fresh Seafood. Order our fresh hot snapper, grouper, mahi, and more. They're boneless, skinless, flash frozen the same day, and individually vacuum wrapped. Pick the size filet you want, the amount you want, and checkout's easy at fastfreshseafood.com. The best thing, every fish is on sale. FastFreshSeafood.com. Caught fresh for you, delivered straight to you. Stay home and stay safe.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski, your host. Our website is aneighborschoice.com. That's aneighborschoice.com. You can email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. We're talking about science. The problem is politics. The solution is skin in the game, thinking for ourselves, innovating, creating new inventions and discoveries in nature that can alleviate pain and suffering for people around the world. And that means we have to think about science with fresh perspective, with a perspective that's not going to be held up by sacred cows of dogma and political correctness or whatever. We've got to be careful about rocking the boat of establishment ideas. That's okay. on this program, we do that every day with pride because it's not about going along to get along. It's about telling the truth and making the world of science more understandable and more based in reality and not just fancy equations. Joining me to do that for Science and You is our physicist, Chief Science Advisor for A Neighbor's Choice, Dr. Yu, who returns now. I want to look at this story here on ScienceDaily.com. It says, new type of atomic clock keeps time even more precisely. The design, which uses entangled atoms, could help scientists detect dark matter and study gravity's effect on time. I guess it's in the MIT, published yesterday. And so what do you make of this story? Anything to this story that is of note for our listeners?
Yes, one thing I want your listener to be aware of, anytime you can improve the accuracy of atomic clock, this could be, so much important. Say for GPS use, you know how to determine the location and the time, especially calculate the distance. You know, self-driving the distance. How can you accurate to know how much meters ahead? It's all based on the atomic clock measure time. Because whenever we have a satellite, we have those kind of a radar. We measure distance. What do we really measure? We measure the time between emission of the electromagnetic wave, either laser light, the light wave is actually part of visible electromagnetic wave too, right? Or radio wave. So we measure the time between the emission of the light wave and by receiving, after reflection, receiving the wave. So when we know the time between emission and the receiving, and then we know the speed of the light, so we can calculate the distance, right? So we know the velocity, and we know the time. Of course, we can calculate what's the distance a bit. So that's why number one thing is very important is for the GPS use for all the future atomics or 5G. It's all try to improve time. Okay, so that's why. So it's very important. The second thing is why this time talking about this could be increase the accuracy. It is many times. The reason is we whenever we're talking about the time, we know what time is the passing of the moment, right? We know that one. But how can you measure the time? We usually measure with a periodic motion. Say in the old days, we see how many see the sun. During the day, sun, the one cycle, so always count as a day. So they say your periodic motion to measure time. But in modern days, we find out that no matter you use a sun, use the moon, or you use the grandfather clock to measure them, it still has problems, has accuracy problems compared with the most stable structure is atom. So that's why we developed called atomic clock. And at the time, we find the cesium, that's the element, the atomic element. The cesium element is very stable and very easy to measure its resonance frequency. So that's why from before to now, that we always use cesium atomic clock to measure them. But this time they said cesium clock still has accuracy problems when you go through. So that's why they said, okay, we find MIT developed even new method to measure this time. So what they did, they find that instead of use a cesium, this atomic atom, use their measure frequency, we use some called a new element that's called a real Earth element called erbium. So this is a real Earth element. They said that this element's resonance frequency 100,000 times faster than cesium. The frequency is 100,000 times higher. So that means in the segment it has a more smaller. You can divide the time even smaller units by 100,000 times. So that's why they said, oh, yeah, if we can accurately measure this outer burn, this kind of real earth materials, we can increase the atomic accuracy. So that's the whole story.
Wow, that's very interesting. I want to turn to another story while we have you. It says, spiders in space. Without gravity, light becomes key to orientations. Humans have taken spiders, this is in ScienceDaily.com too, humans have taken spiders into space more than once to study the importance of gravity to their web building. What originally began as a somewhat unsuccessful PR experiment for high school students has yielded the surprising insight that light plays a larger role in arachnid orientation than previously thought. So apparently they've been taking these spiders into the space station, and they say, we wouldn't have guessed that light would play a role in orienting the spiders in space. They say they analyzed the spider experiment, and they published in the Journal of Science of Nature. We were very fortunate that the lamps were attached at the top of the chamber and not on various sides. Otherwise, we would not have been able to discover the effect of light on the symmetry of webs in zero gravity. That spiders have a backup system for orientation like this seems surprising, since they have never been exposed to an environment without gravity in the course of their evolution, they say. On the other hand, he says, a spider's sense of position could become confused while it is building its web. The organ responsible for this sense registers the relative position of the front part of the body to the back. During the construction of the web, the two body parts are in constant motion, so an additional orientation aid based on the direction of the light is particularly useful. See, this is interesting to me, Dr. Yu, just off the top of my head, is that you are the one that explains that light and gravity are all manifestations of magnetism. So they're confused because they've got the spider in a zero gravity environment in the space station, and they're like, well, how is it able to do its job? And you would understand that better if you understand Dr. Yu's physics, wouldn't you?
Exactly. When you have a light is oscillating magnetic wave, so light is the same thing as electricity, okay? So that's why light can generate heat, can cut things, just like electricity do, okay? So when you have a light, when you have electricity, you know it has a magnetic field, right? And you have a light beam, of course, it will generate a magnetic wave along the beam.
So the spider is sensitive to these wave motions that are being in the light,
yes.
right?
Do you know why? Remember last week or before last week, we talking about that. Bacteria or virus, they're all microbes. They all have this magnetic sensing element along their spine, right? So basically, it's every living cells or biology, living beings, include the spiders, they all, include the human, all oriented based on the magnetic field. On Earth, we're based on the Earth's magnetic field. Under the sea, we know the fish and the many things, sea lives, they also can go along the Earth's magnetic field. But in the space, you don't have the luxury with gravity, Earth's magnetic field. However, when you have a light generates a magnetic field. That's how the spiders, or you have other biological materials, they will align with their magnetic field. Based on the magnetic field, they can determine the directions.
So that explains, because they were saying, how could they have a backup solution for something they've never existed in, which is zero gravity environment? See,
David, you already answered the question before even asking.
Yeah.
That's the powerful of the understanding the fundamental physics.
Well, we're out of time, but it's always great to have you on Science and You, Dr. Yu. Thank you for joining us. And it's always great to hear your insights. For more Science and You, go to neighborschoice.com. That's the letter A, neighborschoice.com. Click on the Science and You section, and you can catch this episode and many others like it for the most groundbreaking analysis on science news that you'll find anywhere in broadcast media. I'm David Gornosky. We'll be back with more for Hour 2. But in the meantime, Godspeed.